All right, we are live. I am so excited to have my next guest here, Denise Walsh. She is just such a beautiful human. I have had the pleasure of getting to know her, working with her in a previous company and being able to learn from her. You know, we were in an environment where I sought her out. She was running retreats for her team, and I thought, I have to know her. I have to know who she is. I have to know what she's teaching. Like, you just have this light about you. And Denise has created this program called Dream Space. She's a mom. She's an incredible entrepreneur. And one of the things, I have to start with this because Denise changed my life. I was one of those people that was stuck in the perfectionist mode and constantly beating myself up, constantly thinking, oh man, you messed that up, or you could have done better, or this should have been better. And that would go over and over and over in my head, which is actually not very helpful at all. And going on this retreat and spending a few days with her, she gave me one sentence that changed my life. And it was, now that I know better, I'll do better. And that is a sentence that I use maybe daily, maybe weekly. It's something that always comes up, and I think of you whenever I think of it. And I would just really like to have a conversation with you because you have created that dream life for you and your family. And now you teach other people how to do that. So welcome so much to this interview. And I'm so happy that you're here. And do you want to just tell people a little bit about yourself? I know that you're a clinical psychologist and you use those skills to help people move through where they're stuck.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, hi, everyone. Thank you so much for having me, Christina.
My pleasure.
So my 2-minute story is I got into the field of psychology because I was a camp counselor. So I feel like my spark was lit at camp. I was working with inner city foster kids, and I remember them, they came to camp with their head down and their guard up, and they didn't trust anyone. And through the weeks of working with them, I saw them start to light up. I saw them start to blossom. And I remember thinking, it's my job to believe in people. I saw them 3 steps ahead of where they saw themselves. And I felt like in this environment, they were starting to grow and thrive. So I got into the field of psychology. I got my first job. I was off to save the world. And it did not take long in the helping professions to be tired, bored, burnt out. I was overworked, underpaid, all that good stuff. And I quickly started looking for something else because I knew what it was like to love what I was doing. I knew what it was like to feel like that spark, to feel like time is going by fast. You're adding value into the world, and you are getting paid for it, and all your needs are met because you're adding your gifts into the world. And there was this, you're not living in fear or lack or any of that. Like, I know what it was like to love what I was doing. So to not love what I was doing, I thought, I have a choice to make. I could stay here in the place that I don't love, knowing that it's not it,
Yeah.
Or I could search for it again. And so I decided to start looking and seeking and finding other ways to use my gifts and skills, which landed me in a network marketing company where I was able to grow and thrive and was in the top 3 of the company for over a decade. And, continuing to work with my team and helping them to create their dream life, and then continuing to create for those who don't necessarily want to do a business, but still want to live their dream life too.
Yeah. Well, that's the thing, it's all in your mindset. And we talked a little bit about perfectionism, and I always thought you had to have this great big vision and it had to be perfect and you had to execute it perfectly. And so that's why I was always beating myself up, because I'm like, I have to get better to get there. And what I realized is that failure is the way through. Right? Like learning the things that and how those thoughts were really holding me hostage to a life that I knew was smaller than the life I was capable of living.
Yeah.
Right.
Messy action, right? Because you learn so much through the doing that if you never do, you never actually get to learn.
Yeah. And so, one of the things that you're really good at is showing people a way through and say, hey, all of these life things may be going on, but how your thoughts come to fruition and how you recognize your thoughts can make a massive difference in the speed in which you get to your next goal.
Absolutely.
So
go ahead. Well, I was just going to mention, I'm working with I have a program called 90-Day U-Turn, and we meet weekly. And it's fun. It's amazing to see the start, and then the transition to people really making life changes on the other side. And one of the things that I just got feedback on this last week was I thought that my thoughts controlled me. People were like, I didn't realize I could change my thinking. I just thought that this was the way it was. And so if we don't take our thoughts captive and do something different, we will be trapped in our own thoughts and unable to really see options because we're in that dark hole. And so even knowing that it's possible to change your thinking and create new neural pathways to have new automatic thoughts, ooh, that's when things get really fun because it doesn't feel so hard anymore.
Yeah. And I find too, like surrounding yourself with the right kind of people, like yourself and having that positive thought around is really something that will help you move forward, because a lot of people will sit in their stuff, right? They'll sit in their stuff and they're comparing themselves to other people. Why is that person better than me? Why can't I be like that? Why doesn't my life look like their life? And the truth is, the work that you're not doing today, whether it's personal development or setting up systems or scaling or any of that kind of stuff, the work that you're not doing today is what's holding you back from living that next level of life. So I'd love for you to tell people how jealousy of other people and what they have can help motivate you to achieve the success that you want, as opposed to feeling like crap when you look at somebody else that has something that you don't have.
Yeah, I love that. It's such a surprise, isn't it, to think, oh, jealousy can actually be a motivator and be used for good rather than feeling jealous. And jealous typically just means I wish that I were doing what you are doing. I wish I had what you had. I wish I looked like you look. I'm not good enough. Because I wish that I was more like someone else, right? And we would typically identify that as a negative quality, a negative emotion. And it can be if we stay stuck there, but it doesn't have to be. And what I've learned is to use it as a clue. So for example, I started feeling jealous that my friend started a podcast. And I was like, what the freaking heck? I wanted to start a podcast. You did it first. How rude. And then I realized that emotion of jealousy that I was experiencing in that moment was a sign that it's a priority. I desire something, but I'm not making it a priority. Right. And in order to achieve this result of starting my podcast, I have to make it a priority. So even just having that emotion and recognizing I apparently want this. Yeah. So I should do something about that. Yeah. I created my podcast. But if you think of somebody who maybe is debt-free and you're jealous of that, I wish I was debt-free. I wish I lived in Mexico. You can use that as a clue for yourself to say, well, this sounds like it's a priority that I'm not taking action on. And then the idea here is to then rearrange your calendar and do something about it.
Yeah, absolutely. Where I was raised, we were always we compare to the neighbors, right? You're comparing yourself to the Joneses, as they say. And I recognized that I would have this envy, but it wasn't until I realized that I myself could create that result that I started getting curious, right? So instead of sitting there and being like, oh, they have a really nice car, I wish I had, my dream car, or I wish that I was able to spend more time with my kids, or I wish the thing that I have found is probably one of the best ways forward is to turn turn jealousy into curiosity and go to people that are doing more than you or are doing the thing that you want to do and start asking questions like, hey, how did you do that? Because part of the reason, I've been wanting to do a podcast for 2 years, right? And part of the reason, and I'm just going to be totally transparent with everybody, part of the reason that I didn't do that, because I don't know how to start a podcast. I don't know what the next step is. And so we get into this self-sabotage mode. I'm not smart enough. I don't have the skills. I don't have, the technology background in starting this thing, right? Had I just gone to one of my friends who I really admire, who has a great podcast, and said, hey, how did you get started? What was the first website you went to? How did you get it on Spotify? How did you get it on Apple? How did you do those things? that would have changed the game. And so can we talk a little bit about like how self-sabotage can really hold us back, and maybe why it happens, or what we can do to fix it, and maybe be able to move through those moments where we question ourselves?
Yeah. Self-sabotage is rampant. And I think we all can think of a time when we said we want something and then we didn't do it, or we didn't follow through, or in fact, we went to the other side, I'm going on a diet and then we're eating donuts by noon. And what I found is that it means your head and your heart are out of alignment. I want something, but I don't quite believe it's possible, or I don't have the skills necessary in order to execute. And so we know that self-sabotage truly is like a self-image issue. It means, and so instead, in order to raise our self-image, then we want to get in our dream life pathway alignment, head, heart, feet. So sometimes we grow our belief, and we grow, we learn more, we identify as somebody who's like, I'm a learner. I can figure this out. I'm a podcaster. And we then start Googling things. Like I had to do the same thing. I had to say, how do you start a podcast, and put it in my calendar and say, for this next hour, I'm going to learn as much as I can about the system of having a podcast, because everything is learnable. Everything is really figure outable. But what happens is we have these old thought patterns and these old programs that we are running on really automatically. And this is like the subconscious behavior that we don't often know or understand is there. And that subconscious mind runs 97% of our actions and our thoughts. It's really the automation of our life. It means we don't have to think too much when we want to brush our teeth. We don't have to think too much when we are eating. Like your body just kind of responds. So that's the automatic pilot that we're on. And that automatic pilot can be great if those habits are taking you where you want to go, or not if those habits are not. And so what makes self-sabotage a little like less frequent in our life is when what we want aligns with who we believe we are, and we can change that underlying programming so the automatic thoughts take us in the direction that we want to go.
Yeah, I love that. And it's exercise, right? Like it's not just, oh, I'm going to decide to not self-sabotage today. It's like going to the gym every day, and you get stronger and you get stronger at mastering your emotions, mastering your thoughts, mastering setting boundaries, right? Because a lot of people that are perfectionists are also people pleasers. Mm-hmm. And so they want to make everybody happy. And that can be really challenging when you're just trying to figure out, what is my purpose? Who do I serve? How can I help with my heart and be able to move forward? And the other really interesting thing is that we have opportunities in our lifetime that our parents and grandparents never had, right? Like for you to be able to go to Google and like search how to start a podcast. And I gave this example to a friend the other day, like we talk about parenting, and our parents just did the best they could with the information that they had from generation after generation after generation. They couldn't go to Google and be like, my kid's having a temper tantrum, what do I do? Or like, my kid isn't learning this way, how could I teach them a different way? They didn't have the resources we have, and we get to learn anything we want at any point in time by using this little device that's attached to us, right? Like it's a different way of thinking of telepathy and like expanding our brain into the AI area, because we all carry one of these, and we all are like sending text messages, which is like telepathy, right? It's like going through space and I'm sending you a message. And the other thing is, when we are able to learn a skill from our phone in the pockets of our day, like we don't have to take a 4-year degree course anymore. We don't have to take a 2-year program. I mean, there's definitely some use for those things out there. I'm not denying that, but it's just a different way of learning and a different way of experiencing. And so one of the things that in this information era, there's pieces everywhere that are flying at you, right? Like in a sea of noise, how can you make decisions and decide, okay, I'm going to do a podcast and keep that promise to yourself, and make sure that it doesn't get lost in the mix? Because how many times have you had a really good idea and like, oh, I really need to integrate this into my business, or I really need to start this new habit, and then something happens and you go fall back into the old habit again.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that I talk to so many people who are like, I've been wanting to start my business for 7 years.
Yeah.
But because we don't know what to do, we do nothing often, right?
Yes.
And so there's 3 ways to change your automatic thinking. The first one is with hypnosis. Hypnosis is a really powerful tool that you can use. I recommend right before bed when your thoughts are like going from alpha and beta down to theta, and you're just really in that relaxed mode. As you probably know, your first 7 years of life, you're living in that theta relaxed mode, and you're a sponge absorbing everything. And so you can reprogram your subconscious from, it's programmed now from your first 7 years, but you can add to it and you can take things away and you can reprogram yourself. So one of the ways is hypnosis. And so listening to a hypnosis about what it is you want before you go to bed, whether it's money mindset, whether it's health and wellness goals, whether it's those are some fun and easy things that you can do to help reprogram your subconscious and shift your identity, because that's half of it, right? Is to shift your identity. The other way that you can hack your subconscious programming is through your environment, your home. And so what you want to do is pay attention to what you're listening to, what's on TV, what movies you're listening to, because there's 75,000 bits of information coming at us all of the time, and our subconscious is absorbing it all, and it wants us to be normal. It wants us to be like the tribe. And so even if you want to be healthy, if we're watching normal TV, right? And they're saying to binge drink on the weekends and watch 8 hours of Netflix and then go get Dunkin' Donuts, and if our subconscious believes that that's the tribe we want to fit into, then it's going to, we're going to self-sabotage and really land in that tribe. And one thing to know is that our subconscious does not know the difference between a real, imagined, or screened event. So if you're watching TV and movies and things, then that absolutely does impact your self-image and the way that you view yourself in the world. So hacking your home means putting what you want everywhere, putting your goals front and center and loud, so your subconscious scans the world and sees what you want instead. So we put affirmations all over our house. We put them in our car. We put our goals places. Like we hack our house. We just put what we want everywhere because we know our subconscious is going to absorb it. And then the third thing that you do to reprogram your subconscious is habits. And this is habit stacking, habit building. This is one habit at a time. And so what I recommend for habit tracking, or really like shifting your habits, is to focus on, number one, create a strategy. So for example, in my 90-day U-turn program, I give them a habit tracker and we do daily challenges. And I have them drink a gallon of water a day. And some people rock it out. And some people, I say, how's it going? And they go, I'm not. And then I say, what's your strategy? And they go, I don't have one.
Right.
Like, well, that's why you're not doing it. Because we're not going to accidentally drink a gallon of water a day.
That's right.
We need to have either one of those big gallon ones we drink. I have 3. I have like a bigger one and I drink 3 of them a day. It's a system that I know how much I drank and I can, make it a goal. But it has to be a system. It has to be a strategic. We have to understand what we're doing. And then we get to put it in our calendar. So once we've identified the plan, we create the system for whatever our goal is, then we give it a time slot. And it sounds a bit overkill. Like some type B people are like, do not tell me what I'm going to do at every second of the day. And I say, here's the deal. You can be flexible and you can rearrange things. But if it's not on your calendar at all, you're not going to do it at all. So put working out on your calendar. And if you need to change it around, you certainly can, but you're not going to accidentally work out. So create your strategy, put it in your calendar, and then finally create that accountability. Find people that are 3 steps ahead of you so you can hang out with them so they can help hold you accountable.
Absolutely. You have to have that plan, right? You have to have a plan or else you're not going to take action. And you're right. You don't just accidentally drink a gallon of water. Like you have to figure that out. Right. And I think that often people don't like giving up things, right? It's hard to stop a bad habit, but what's easier is replacing it with a better habit.
Yeah.
right? If like, because I think about that all the time. Like, I don't necessarily want to drink more water, but I also would like to eat less, and I always get really hungry. So if I drink a glass of water before I eat, then I eat less, right? So if you that's my strategy on how to drink more water, right? Like, this is how I'm going to make it happen in my life. And when you have a plan, then it's easier to shift those habits. The other thing that I like came to mind when you're talking about like the subliminal messages that you see on TV, like how many people, honestly, how many people have watched TV, and even if you don't eat at McDonald's, you see a Big Mac come up on TV and you're like, oh, I want a Big Mac. Right? Like, you're like, oh man, that looks like such a good burger, even though in your mind you're like, I shouldn't eat that. I don't want to eat that, but it looks so good and it makes you feel like you want one. It's the same thing. If you're looking at positive things, if you're listening to podcasts that are lifting you up, if you're listening to hypnosis, like, I think that's a really great tip. That's something that's really helped me as well. If you're doing those kind of things, you're shifting your habits as well and allowing your mind to start with new neural pathways or rewrite the ones that you already have.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Denise, one of the things that I really admire about you, and it's something that I strive for and something that I think is really important, is for people like us, for women like us that are highly motivated and driven, it can be challenging to balance a really great marriage and family life, right? For people that are a bit of workaholics, people that strive for more and more and more and more and more. So what I'd really love for you, I won't take up too much more of your time, but what I'd really love for you to chat a little bit about is how you've been able to balance, creating really great business, pursuing your passions, but having a really great balance. Because I know that you homeschooled your kids for a bit and created a really great environment. I know that you guys travel all the time and have experiences with your kids, and you and your husband have a really great marriage. So how have you been able to balance all of those things?
Yeah, I can tell you at first, it was tricky. When you have a thriving business, I went through a lot of mom guilt. I had to wrestle through it. It wasn't like easy necessarily, but once you figure it out, it's skills you can use forever. And so what we learned early on in our thriving business was that not everything had to be me. I did not need to be super mom. And so I asked for help at home, not only from Brandon, but we got a nanny. She helped I had 2 small kids. She helped watch the kids. She cleaned, she did laundry. She did a lot of things that gave me brain space to focus on my business. But then we also started outsourcing things in my business. So there are, again, things in my business that didn't need to be me. And so they helped to elevate our business, but it didn't have to be me doing it. So we started really outsourcing some of the things that didn't need to be me. So both Brandon and I could thrive in our gifts. And then the other thing that we got really good at was scheduling time, time chunking. So I had work time on my calendar. I have playtime on my calendar. I have date nights on my calendar, and we stick to it. And the cool thing is that I know when I'm with my boys that I got work done. And when I'm working, I know I have time with my boys. And I think the hard part is when we feel like we should be, we're working and we're like, oh, I'm a bad mom. I should be playing with my kids right now. Or we're playing with our kids and we're like, oh my gosh, I need to be calling leads. Like, we never feel like we're ever truly present where we are because we're thinking about a million things. So getting control of my schedule and chunking out when I'm working and when we're having fun really helped me to then be in the moment, knowing that everything had a spot.
Yeah, I think that is probably the key to it all, is having a really good hard look at your schedule and taking out the things that don't need to be there, putting in help, like whether you use a VA, whether you have a personal assistant, whether you have a nanny, whether you have a housekeeper, all of those things. Like, how are you utilizing your gifts the best? What are the things that you absolutely have to do personally for your business? And then making a list of the things that you do every day and say, well, I don't have to do that. I don't have to do that. I don't have to do that. And when you actually schedule work and play and dates and all that kind of stuff, everything shifts. I remember I used to work 7 days a week. I don't know. Did you do that? Like, work 7 days a week and like work it?
Well, because I was told, right? I was told, do what other people won't, so you'll have what other people can't, And so I was brought up in this like hustle, grind kind of culture, which was great when it was great. And then you burn out.
Yeah. And you like face plant because you're exhausted. I'm like, I'm going to work harder than everybody else. I'm going to be up until 1 o'clock in the morning. Nothing is getting really done between 11 and 1. Right? Like nothing is getting done that late at night because your brain fog and all that kind of stuff. And the other thing that I learned when I was working like that, I was working in a constant state of exhaustion because I wasn't getting enough sleep. I wasn't valuing my health first, because how many moms out there are like, you know what, my family comes first, then my business, and then this, but then you come last. And so I recognized I'm not eating properly. I'm not sleeping properly. I'm not getting enough exercise. I'm not doing all of those things. And my level of happiness went down. And then I wasn't that person for my family because I wasn't honoring me. And like, I know that self-care is running rampant and like, oh, I'm just going to go do some self-care. And that is important. But sometimes people go too far in the other direction and they can't find that balance. And that's why I think having a schedule is like the smartest thing that you can do, and sticking to it. And hey, you know what, that can adjust. There are things that shift and change in that environment that allow you to do those things. But here's another question that I want to ask you before I let you go, because it can be challenging, especially, in society. We have all of these expectations. And I think what I heard you say is, you drop those expectations of who you think you need to be as a mom, who you think you need to be as a wife or as a business owner. And when you can drop those and look at your business or look at your family life or look at your marriage from the outside in and see a bit of a different perspective. One of the questions that comes up a lot when I'm talking to other female entrepreneurs is like, how do I build this big but maintain this relationship with my partner? Like, you on stage are absolutely phenomenal. Like, you are phenomenal. And so a lot of time there's like this power balance that you like want to make your husband feel really included and important and all that kind of stuff. But if you're the face of that business because you've got this incredible drive, how do you balance that in your marriage so that it's not always about you and they, maybe it's a projection that we feel like we're making them feel less than. Does that make sense?
Right. Yeah. In our situation, Brandon's role in the business was just as, if not more important than mine. I was the face, and I would say I still am, a face, but he was the one that was driving a lot of the stuff on the back end. And so what we found was, even if he didn't get that much recognition from the field or from our team, because they didn't know, I needed to say thank you. And I was the one that was like, I am so grateful for you and what we're able to create together. And this is so much fun, and give him just some love and appreciation in that way. But sometimes it is a projection because he's like, I don't want to be on stage.
Yeah, Brian wouldn't either at all. And you know what's so funny is that like I look at that situation, and what you're doing is allowing each other to own your gifts and what you do well. One of the things that I realized is I took a lot, because of our dynamic, I took a lot of things for granted. And so I have a thing that I say thank you 5 times a day to him for something, whether he brings me coffee in the morning or, he's made dinner or whatever it is. Like, I'm like, thank you for going to get Izzy from school. Thank you for doing these things. Like, I really appreciate it, so that we can build this life together. And it's not typically a role that men would be in. But the one thing that I know about Ryan is that if he is taking care of his family, he feels good. If we feel supported, he feels good. If he gets physical exercise every day, if you give him an axe and a bunch of wood to chop, he's happy, right? And so as long as he can do that and have his own thing outside of what we're creating, it's allowing people to step into their purpose and into their, and supporting them along that, and really recognizing, hey, life is getting busy for me. What can I outsource, not onto them, but what can I outsource to somebody else, so that I can continue to focus on our marriage and not put more on them than necessary?
Outsourcing really helped me. I think it helped, number one, give me brain space to dream, because I wasn't so consumed. I mean, a lot of people I talk to, they're like, I have so many plates spinning, I can't add one more thing. And I'm like, you're right. You do have too many plates spinning. You do have too much going on. Like, what is your, like, one specific goal that you're going to focus on, right? So outsourcing some of that stuff really helped me to have that brain space. But then it also gave me patience, because when I was home, I wasn't thinking, I got to do a million things before bedtime. Yeah. I felt like I could really be present. And so ask for help. And if you're thinking, I don't have the resources to ask for help, you have to have money to make money, or all these things, think about teenagers, think about, even our kids, sometimes we can start using them. Even the business can pay a 12-year-old.
Yes.
And there's just a lot of creative things that we can do to not have it all be on us. And I think the reality is if a lot of things do fall on the mom, in terms of even organizing the outsourcing.
Yes.
So ask for help and get creative. Find a youth group that, needs to do hours, and maybe they can come rake your leaves or whatever the case may be, but just know that it doesn't all have to be on you.
Oh, I love it. Denise, thank you so much for taking the time to be here today. I am so lucky that we were able to connect and that you are a piece of my life that really did shift things for the better. And I couldn't be more grateful for you and your friendship. So thank you so much for being here today. I really appreciate it.
Absolutely. Thank you, Miss Christina. I will always value our connection.
Thank you so much. We will see you again very soon. Bye for now.
If you think this video can help a friend, make sure you share it.